Welcome back. My next guest is the globe-trotting Nestor Aparicio. You never know where this man's going to turn up. He does great things. The crab cake tour. His pictures are all over walls of fine dining establishments, as my better half found out the other day.
Hold on, hold on, hold on. You're not going to give me an introduction like that. My picture isn't on the wall anywhere. I'm not on the wall
Oh,
at Costas. I'm not on the wall at
okay.
Amici's. I'm not on the wall at any of the places that I have been holding meetings like the Fawn since 1985. You know what I mean?
I sent you the picture. I cannot make this up. You and I recognize Governor Hogan.
I
And
always wanted to be on the wall of Captain Harvey's in Dundalk. I'm not going to lie, but that never happened. You know.
I've had several cheesesteaks from Captain Harvey's in my lifetime. But yeah, you're everywhere.
I'm in New York right now, which is it looks like I'm in Baltimore, but I have bad lighting. I have Manhattan lighting. It's
Okay.
my wife's birthday. I'm a big Seal fan, and certainly I've always been a Seal fan. I've just never seen Seal in concert since 1999. He went out on a tour for the first time, and he was so yeah, people ask me, what's the best concert you ever seen? You go to a lot of concerts. And I'm like, they're all good. They're all worthwhile. And some of them are better than others. And then sometimes you see something that's a little transcendent and you're like, all right, like when I see Springsteen and I go to see him multiple times, it's, I like Austin, Texas, and I want to go see it, or I like New York and I want to see it. But to see Seal on a Wednesday night, it's my wife's birthday week. We had it was an easy getaway for us with a long weekend. And and the Orioles were in New York too. So
Nice.
Nasty Nestor was on the hill, and the Orioles got right with him after the rainstorm. So
Exactly.
yeah, the one thing I'll say about being in New York and after the plague, because there's so much cities have deteriorated in a lot of places in the world, not just in America. New York's not just rising again. It's $400 a night to get a room in New York.
Ah,
There were Yankee fans just everywhere. I found myself at Moynihan Hall, and there were people in Orioles gear. I know some folks ran bus trips up here again. The heartbeat of baseball back in our city. To go to a city where everybody's wearing a Yankee hat or a Mets hat, or when you go to Boston, everybody had, well, maybe not as much lately, but there was a period of time, and a period of time in our town where in the early 90s, everybody had the ornithologically correct Oriole hat and wore it as a true source of civic pride. And I feel like there's some pride coming back in the Baltimore. I could put an Oriole hat on and walk the streets of New York today and not have people say, hey, they haven't won since 1983, right? So when you come to cities and travel a little bit, I feel sports and I feel the culture come to me when I go to places. And when I go to places when I'm in Houston about 10 weeks ago and everybody's got Astro stuff on, you realize what the team has done in the community and the impact it's made. And certainly the Ravens have made that kind of impact in Baltimore, where they have been for most of our adulthood, this ubiquitous everything purple means a purple bird. And to see New York come to life with sports in the summertime, it's awesome. See people on the train headed to Yankee Stadium.
it's all good stuff. You just reminded me. I did a segment with our good friend Bruce Posner, and of course, he's the ultimate Terp fan, Terp analyst. But he had on a black and white old school Orioles hats, and so even a guy like Bruce is rocking the bird these days, and lots to like about these birds. Not so much Tuesday night when Felix Bautista let up a home run against Aaron Judge on the 0-2 count. That left us with a sour taste. But the Orioles come back for the 19th time. They've come back 19 times, Nestor, of the 32 wins. This team is
It's not even
resilient.
June. It's not even
It's
June.
not even June. This team is resilient. They're relative. They're relevant rather. They're not going anywhere. They're fun to watch, and the momentum continues to build for these Baltimore Orioles.
You've had a radio show here for a
Forever.
decade, for
Yes.
over a decade,
Never
and
talked about them until
I,
now.
I, I and when they sucked and they were irrelevant and they went
Yes.
away,
You hung in there with them. You
I
hung in
would
there with them.
force you to say one day
Yes.
they and again, people would say to me, like, I did Free the Birds, I'm re-releasing the Peter Principles. I want people to know what happened, why I'm estranged 17 years from going to games and giving these creeps money and like talking about it on the radio that way. I'm happy to re-earth what John Angelos did to me 17. It's funny, the Bird squirt area that, I was assaulted by the Bird in 2006 after they didn't pay the bill. So it's been 20 years of angst But there was never a point when I wrote any of my Masson series when we still is keeping the money away from the Nationals, all of the things that happened, how Buck Showalter just exited and there was nothing here. That was scorched earth when Buck
Yep.
Showalter left here, right? So, including Matt Wieder's knees, right? So, you know, according to the flagship, all these years they could do no wrong when they're losing 100 games. All I kept saying is there's something here that is significant. It's important. It was important to the community enough that when my parents were alive and your parents, they funded building a stadium so that we could have baseball downtown, have great baseball downtown, have the Yankees come every year and the Red Sox come every year and have a chance to win a World Series. And this starts to feel like they're going to play postseason baseball this year and maybe for a little while until they then have to manage it financially, right? And that's either John paying players, bringing players in. I mean, they've already got decisions to make in 6 or 8 weeks, right? As to whether they're going to throw 10, $20 million into the kitty this year to chase a couple of ball players that may help them, pieces that Elias needs in October. So there's a long way to go in whether they really have invested in the community and invested in the franchise. I mean, they're still fighting with the Nationals and their own partners about the money, a couple $100 million. But this is go time on the field. None of that. Nobody's going to talk about any of that. They're going to talk about how are we playing? Did we win last night? Are we winning tomorrow night? And that's what a baseball season should be. We haven't had that kind of season around here since 2016.
No, it's great. It's great to see the enthusiasm. It's great to see people going back downtown again, supporting the Orioles, supporting all the local businesses around the stadium and whatnot. So the civic pride is rising with the Baltimore Orioles to the point where the Ravens news has kind of subsided. Lamar Jackson has showed up. So that's
Well,
been
the
a big
Ravens don't want
story.
any news, right? I mean, the Ravens want to hold press conferences where nobody says anything, and they all go away and they get their paycheck. Like they're the opposite. But then they put out these warm, fuzzy things trying to sell the seats that Chad Steele took from me, right? So they have a video that they released this week that's, Baltimore, all that. Season tickets are available. They show Lamar in his car talking about how happy he is that he got $73 million. The Orioles, meanwhile, are putting a product on the field, and they have all of these things at the higher level of Major League Baseball, like the City Connect, right? And
Which I like, by the way. I like that.
Nike gets involved in, and I guess it's a topic of conversation for a minute and a half, right? Like you and me talking about the Oiler throwbacks coming back in the NFL on the Tennessee Titans. I mean, I don't care what jerseys they wear, but back up what you say you are. You're going to put a video out about how much the team means to the community. Dude, I'm old enough to remember when the word Baltimore was not allowed to be mentioned around the franchise. And where I had a host who you supported on this radio station for 8 years, campaigning to get Baltimore back on the road jerseys,
Yep.
and ownership would refuse to put the word Baltimore on it. So it is rich with irony that
Isn't
I
it?
sat here and fought, got thrown out, complete everything that's happened to me for sitting on a radio station in Baltimore, actually in Towson, but in Baltimore, and saying maybe the Orioles should have the word Baltimore on their road jerseys, like
Right.
29 other road teams. And now all of a sudden, it's just sort of like it's standard
The
operating
thing,
procedure.
it's the thing to do a decade later, right?
But it was always the thing. Baltimore never left my chest. You know what I mean?
I know, but I do remember you railing against them for not having Baltimore on their uniforms, and all of a sudden, it's the chic thing to do, right?
It
Now with
was
the
one of the key points of them throwing me out.
yeah,
It was one of the key points of them throwing me out. So I have a sense of humor about it. People think that I'm bitter. I'm like, I'm in New York City having delicious muffins, seeing Seal. I'm not bitter. I'm glad they're better. I'm glad they're better for you, for me. My kid texts me about the Orioles now. People are into it,
they're
and it's
into it.
May. And Dennis, I know what that ride feels like. I went on it every summer of my life, the first 35 years of my life, right? Like where every summer was spring training, opening day. When are we playing? When's the road trip? When do they play in New York? Let's have a road trip. Hey, do they play in San Diego or LA or are they playing at Wrigley Field? Let's go have a trip. Let's see that they're relevant. Hey, you've never been to Fenway Park? Let's go to Fenway Park. It's awesome. You should go to Fenway Park and see a game. And then there's the thing where like my pal Dennis and his girl and my wife, and we tickets and Sunday afternoon, and hey, let's go down to the ball game. The Twins are in town. Rodriguez is pitching. Dennis has got corporate. Let's go put a hat on and put some suntan lotion and go out there and spend too much on beer and popcorn the way we did at Seal last night. So the mojo of going to games. There was traffic last Thursday, Dennis, during your show.
Oh, I know. I heard about it.
I had a happy hour downtown. There was traffic,
I,
and I'm like, good. I lived downtown 19 years. I begged for traffic.
right. You never got
So
any.
yeah, and so I'm excited about all of it, and to be in New York when the Orioles are playing in New York, and to see Orioles gear and to see it be relevant again. I've prayed long and hard for an outcome like this. Then
Yeah, no question about it. Even our organization has jumped on the ship. They've become a sponsor, and we have a Masson rep now, and we're getting some tickets, some
I
complimentary
saw
tickets.
your ad. I saw Crystal. First off, she's
Yeah,
reading the White Marsh thing, and I'm like, Dennis don't know about White Marsh. Dennis is and then I see Coons Baltimore Ford Security Boat,
yeah,
and I'm like, look at
yeah.
that,
No, I
Mr.
like
Coons
it.
is stepping up.
He's stepping up. We had a conversation, said, "Hey, what do you think?" And I said, "Look, everybody loves a winner. Everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. So why not? Let's do it. If it makes sense, let's do it." And it's good because people are tuning in, people are watching. That's where the eyeballs are. So I think it's smart business to put the advertising there.
I remember when Elias came here, and the team was torched, obviously the Brady Anderson thing, and we talked about the Houston Astros, and the Astros had just won. But I was on the radio. I mean, John McClain's one of my dear friends. John covered the Oilers for years, and the venerable, he's a Hall of Famer. But he loves baseball. Anytime I bring John McClain on, he loves baseball so much that he and his wife are moving to Maryland, and they're going to go to Nationals and Orioles games. They want to live
Wow,
somewhere where they can go to
two.
American and National League games. Like
That's
seriously, they're going to live in the
fantastic.
Indianapolis area, and he's lived in Texas, Waco, Texas, his whole life. And I remember him 12 years ago. He's come on with me 5 times a year all of my career, right? And I remember him coming on, and the Orioles were relevant at the time. This is 12, 13, 14, 15 in that range. And we would talk football, talking about Joe Flacco. The Ravens are winning Super Bowls, right? So, I mean, he's a venerable football guest, a very source guy. But we would get into baseball, and he'd say to me, Nestor, the Astros are so bad. They got 0 ratings. 0. No one. They're a 0. That's how irrelevant they are in our community. Then they cheat, bang trash cans, get players, get my little dude from Venezuela, Altuve, and they win, right? But I remember them having a 0 and Houston's a big market. Houston's a number 3, 4 market in America
Huge
for
market.
people.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 8 million people to live in Houston. It's huge, right? And to get a 0, and then to go down there now and see everybody wearing a Julio Cruz throwback, right? Or Jose Cruz throwback. Julio Cruz played for the Mariners. But or the Nolan Ryan, J.R. Richard thing. So for the Orioles to have a 0 rating, it was a 0 in my house. I mean, we haven't watched them in years. We didn't have cable television last summer. I'll admit that. When we moved, we didn't even get cable television because I didn't need it until we got
Yeah.
cable television installed on the Sunday that the Ravens played, and I was thrown out at the Meadowlands 7 months ago because we needed to get it because I needed
That's
to have a
great.
Ravens game. So the fact that we got cable TV, I'm really, really heartened that every night my wife talks into the remote. She's like, Masson. And she puts it on, and the friggin' Nationals are playing the Padres. And she's like, why can't they just put the damn games on one channel and leave, right? Do you do the same thing? Do you go to Masson 1 or Masson 2 and have to figure
I don't use the voice thing. I do it manually. I use the guide. The only
Well,
time I use the voice thing when I'm on YouTube, when I want to find something on YouTube, but I should probably start doing that.
I was fit to be tied on Friday night when you couldn't find the game. Apple Plus, did you see that?
No,
Friday night you couldn't get the game unless you had Apple Plus.
really.
Yeah.
This is too much for me. Growing up with 3 channels and the one on UHF 45 that came in fuzzy.
My
It's too.
family couldn't even afford Super TV. Remember that when they put the little thing on the toaster?
Never even heard of that. Yep, never.
Super TV,
That's how
it
poor we
was
were.
like 80, 81 before Home Team Sports. People are going to know. I'm going to mention Super TV. You mentioned some old timers. Bruce Posner will remember Super TV, but it was
We
like channel 50 something something, and
we never we couldn't afford it. Never even heard of it.
Ted Patterson put the games on. My dad had to do the math on it. My dad's like, $12 a month. Why don't you and I get in the bus? We'll go to 2 ball games for that back in the day. Stop at G&A
Uh,
Coney Island hot dog. Get some hot dogs up there. A little
Look,
chili dog.
my
Randy.
dad brought in a screen one time, and he put it on in front of the black and white TV set, and it was color, so it had a blue for the sky and green for the grass, and it was that was our first
It
color
looked like one
TV.
of those colorized the Gilligan's
Oh
Island
man,
episodes.
yeah, it was really bad. It was really bad because it wasn't always relevant. They're showing a scene from a city and there's buildings and there's no grass, but everything's green on the bottom and you got this blue sky up top. But that was it.
I want to see that. I want to know
Ah,
who manufactured
classic,
that.
classic, man, classic. Talk about rose-colored
Well,
glasses,
the
right?
things we did. Do you remember the little? We had to put the antenna on the roof, and
Of
you'd have the
course,
little turner,
of
and the
course.
turner thing,
Ah,
and the antenna would move on the roof, and then like
right.
all of a sudden, Channel 17 from Philadelphia would come in. Dennis, you'll appreciate this. The only reason I ever moved that little antenna was because Championship Wrestling was on what time? 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock on a Saturday.
4 o'clock, Channel 45.
Channel 45.
Little known fact, and any one of my Philadelphia friends who are of the right age, Howard Eskin types, will remember this. Championship Wrestling came on in Philadelphia at 5 o'clock on Channel
Ah,
17.
nice.
And so when the wrestling ended, I could move the tower. I'm talking 1979, 80, 81, before cable
Yeah.
TV happened, right? You'd move the tower, and then at 20 after, Vince would be there with Ivan Putski, and Putski be saying, Philadelphia, I love you. We're coming to the Spectrum, and I'm taking on Patera, and I'm going to show you. And Greg the Hammer would come
Oh
out.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so the Philadelphia wrestling, I used to have to get the little
Good.
antenna to do
Good
that.
stuff.
But that's how hard I had to work to get my wrestling, to get my television, to get my sports. And now
Of
I
course.
have to figure out whether it'll amass in one or two. It's a first world problem. It really is. It's a
It
first world.
is. But this streaming thing, between Hulu and I don't know, you name it, Paramount, I
Paramount,
mean, HBO Max, you're trying to find a
YouTube
show and
TV. Don't forget them. YouTube
oh
TV.
my God, you gotta look everywhere just to find what you're looking for. But like you said, these are first world problems and but we have good problems here in Baltimore now with our sports franchises. Both are trending up and
I don't need
we
any channels besides Masson and Masson 2,
yeah.
and just figure out which one's irrelevant, which one's relevant, and which one has the Coons commercial.
The nice thing is too when a night like there's not a whole lot going on and baseball's there. It's not bad to view anymore where it was before. And in the past, by the third or fourth inning, they were done. Now they're just never out of it. You got to watch. It's must see TV.
Every night there's a different star. That's the magic
Oh,
of
see
Oriole
that?
baseball.
You know what? The Orioles could use a man like you, but they're only so smart.
I can even sing the song.
I know you can.
I wouldn't even help them sell tickets.
Oh
I,
my.
I, I would actually buy tickets.
Understood.
If you see Mr.
Understood.
Angelos, tell him to pay the bill from 2004. And,
Okay. Okay.
and,
Check
and
check
I don't
checks
need
in
an
the mail.
apology for the bird squirt thing. 2 tickets out there for the Dodgers game,
Right.
on a hot day. I'll get squirted. It's all good.
Hey,
I,
checks
I'm
in the
for,
mail.
hey,
Wait
look,
for it.
I'm for what's good for the city. Anybody that knows me knows that. And there was never a point where 100 losses and an empty city was good for our city. So everything that's happened here, and people come up to me. I was in Bel Air. I was doing the crab cake tour in Falston. Great place, by the way. The local. I would tell you take your girl there, but you got to get a reservation because it's tough to get in. But it's behind the Waffle House and behind the Dunkin' Donuts, right across the street from the Royal Farms. I felt a little dirty getting the chicken sandwich there. I could see Royal Farms and I'm eating a chicken sandwich, but it was a great chicken sandwich. Had a great crab cake there as well. But I'm up there and people are talking to me like, I'm in Falston. I've been watching the games on TV. Well, I haven't been down to the city yet. I'm like, what are you waiting for? You love the Orioles, right? I mean, like you want to
Yeah.
get in on this. Go down there and see Adley play, see Gunner play. But there are people north of Mountain Road that act like Baltimore might as well be, Bimini. Like you
Of
have to have a
course.
boat to get there or a helicopter or something. Um, but the arena and the amount of time that I've been downtown, I had a happy hour at the Center Club last week. I mean, my wife and I are like, man, we live downtown. Things would be easier. We're downtown 4 days a week. And we haven't even gone to an Orioles game. I went opening day. But I'm going to get to some games. That
Yeah,
they're
I know
coming
you
up
will.
weekend. I'm just trying to pick the right time and the right space to do it. And I got some concerts I want to do this summer, a little bit of travel built in, but more than anything, it's our 25th anniversary. I know you know this. I've been working really hard this week on the Oyster Tour. It's our 25th anniversary on August 3rd. We're going to do 25 oysters in 25 days in September, which is going to be the pennant race. I'm trying to like get a list of places with great oyster things, oyster stew, oyster soup,
Okay.
whatever. If they do a Rockefeller that's interesting, if they fry an oyster that's interesting. And then I've had my friend Marty Gary. I talked to him about the Bay and the significance of oysters. And then like even the oyster beds over like Chickatink, Assateague over on the Eastern Shore, but the culture where they're growing farms. They've made man-made oyster farms in addition to natural oysters. And I'm going to learn about the industry because I don't know much
Good.
about it. I've learned
Good.
a lot about crabs the last couple of years. I mean, I knew a lot about crabs from having sponsors like the Barn and where they come from in Texas and North Carolina and off season and all that kind of stuff. But
Well,
oysters are something I don't know a whole lot about. It's like to eat them.
well, I can't wait to see the content. I know that the one of your videos about how to break open the Maryland crab and eat it, the steamed crab, that went viral, and perhaps you can have the same success with some of your oyster stories.
One of the viral videos that maybe you haven't seen that's amazing for this time of year when you're eating crab cakes and we're in the crab season is I went down to the Eastern Shore to one of the pickeries in Cumberland and a great guy named Jack took me through Clayton, Jam Clayton. If you ever see Jam Clayton on crab meat, that's Maryland crab meat. That comes right out of Cambridge. And I went down to their facility and I watched the ladies, and they're all from Mexico. So I could say Mexican ladies. They're literally they're Mexican, some Central American, but mainly Mexican. They come every year. Mothers teach daughters. It's a 90-day gig. They can make enough money to help feed their family for the year. But this is not something that kids in Cumberland can come and do for $10 an hour. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
it's not, it's a skill set. And I shot a video of that and it's got like 40 or 50,000 views just
Nice.
seeing the women pick the crabs and we've all picked the crab, but not professionally. I
Right.
do it for fun, not professionally. But when you eat a crab cake from anywhere, understand that a machine did not pick that meat
Yeah, it's true.
ever. There's no way. And I've talked to the people at the University of Maryland about robotics, right, and STEM. There's no way to create a machine that can pick a crab the right way
That's a
because
good thing.
every crab is constructed differently.
Well, that's a
You
good
know.
thing. It saves jobs. Some things
Well,
should be left to people, not to AI.
yeah, I'm finding that I'm studying this AI stuff and I'm seeing these
It's scary.
scary
Scary stuff,
voice,
man.
especially with my voice being all over the place that
Yeah,
somebody would call you and pretend they're me and
that's
tell you I'm in
crazy.
jail or in trouble or
That's crazy.
like
Yeah.
there's some really freaky stuff happening with AI and I haven't talked about it a lot. Mike
Yeah.
Rosenfeld and I are going to do a little
Yeah.
more
Well,
on it.
good.
That 60 Minutes piece last week really kind of freaked me out a little bit, but and I think the idea is we should be freaked out by it a little bit.
Absolutely.
So, hey
Absolutely.
man, enjoy the games this weekend. I'm
I,
enjoying New York, and it's always good to visit
well,
with you.
good.
And by Monday, we'll be in first place. I can say that every week now because we're close enough that I can say next week we'll be in first place.
Well, we're walking them down, walking down the rays. Nestor, as always, I appreciate your time, your intellect, and your thoughts.
Appreciate you. Eat a crab cake this weekend. Go to a ball game. Take care of
There,
Baltimore.
there he goes. Baltimore positive himself, Nestor J. Aparicio here on 1570 AM WNST. We'll take a quick break and come back right after this.